You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Here with a YouTube and Fox 43 exclusive video, I'm Louie DiBiase, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. The Eagles head off the bye week into a huge playoff implicating matchup against the Washington football team. The Eagles are 6-7. Washington is 6-7. The Minnesota Vikings are 6-7. The New Orleans Saints are 6-7. The Atlanta Falcons are 6-7. Pretty much the long story short, there's a lot of 6-7 teams battling for that final spot in the wild card round of the NFC playoffs. So obviously this is a very important game for the Eagles against Washington on Sunday. One of two matchups against Washington to end the season in their final four games. The playoff race is on, ladies and gentlemen. And although the offense is consistently putting up 30-plus points over the last month and a half, I feel like the defense has played way better football in November and December than they did in September and October. They're not getting the help from one unit that could really put this team at an advantage when it comes to their chances of making the playoffs. It's not something that's going to make or break their playoff chances, as it hasn't over the last four seasons, but it's something you wish you could get some sort of production out of over these final four games, and it's the return game on special teams. You guys have heard myself and my co-host Gino Camilleri talk about a lot how not only is this not a good return team in the kickoff game or the punt game anymore, they're a bottom tier team in both areas. And that's extremely disappointing because when the Eagles offense or defense has been inconsistent, like they were sometimes in 2014 or 2015, they could rely on Darren Sproles to get them a big time return and suddenly change the momentum. Or before that, it was Deshaun Jackson, right? A top tier return unit. That's what the Eagles were for a very long time, that featured some of the best to ever do it. Deshaun Jackson, Darren Sproles. Now, for the last 4 years, including this year especially, they can't buy a high-quality return. I'm not even asking for touchdowns. I'm just talking about positive returns that go for more than 5 to 10 yards. They have not been able to do that in 4 straight seasons since the Super Bowl season in 2017 with Kenyon Barner. And it's not just that they're not a great return team this year and in the last 4 years, but they're not even average. Listen to these numbers in 2021 with how bad the Eagles have been in the kickoff game and the punt return game. The Eagles have the lowest return DVOA on kickoff return yards in the entire NFL. And the DVOA is an efficiency statistic from the Football Outsiders. They're 30th in yards per kickoff return. They're 28th in yards per punt return. And that's frustrating even more because you have a lot of dynamic playmakers that should be able to do this, especially Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, Kenneth Gainwell, not really even used in this area. Boston Scott, we see what Scott has been able to do in the open field. And yet none of them, when given the chance, have made high-quality plays in this area, and especially Jalen Reagor. Look, Jalen Reagor on offense is giving you nothing. I mean, Justin Jefferson, who the Eagles took Reagor over, has had more receiving yards in the last 2 games than Jalen Reagor has had all season. The Eagles' third, fourth string running back, Kenneth Gainwell, a 5th-round rookie this year, has more receiving yards than Jalen Reagor on the year, more receptions. He's been more efficient as a receiver than your first-round pick from just 2 drafts ago. So you're not getting anything from Reagor on offense. At least maybe, you look at Cordarrelle Patterson before he was the RB1 of the Atlanta Falcons this year. He was previously a first-round pick from the Minnesota Vikings back in 2000, and that was, I believe, 2014, 2013. Maybe don't quote me on that. But he was a first-round bust. Like Jalen Reagor, he was fast, but he wasn't giving you any sort of production on offense because all he was fast. But at least Cordarrelle Patterson was giving the Vikings huge returns on special teams. The Eagles can't even get that from Jalen Reagor. They can't even utilize his speed in that area. Jalen Reagor this year has the 5th most punt return attempts in the NFL, and yet he is 17th in punt return yards. He's 19th in yards per kickoff return. His decision-making is awful. And although he has that, long-range speed, he just doesn't have the wiggle for the punt return game or the kickoff return game. There's too many bodies around. And although Reagor has that speed, he does not have that elusiveness to make guys miss. And so it's not only Jalen Reagor, though, but Quez Watkins, considering his dynamic speed, second fastest 40 time in the 2020 NFL Combine, only behind Henry Ruggs. Even when he got chances too, didn't really make the most of it. Same with Boston Scott. I mean, last week, before the bye week, against the New York Jets, Jalen Reagor was so bad as a punt returner, they put Boston Scott back there, and he made a bad decision too, his first return. They can't buy any sort of efficiency in this area, and it's not killing your football team. The return game is never going to kill your football team, but it'd be nice to have that advantage, especially going down the stretch here in a potential playoff run. In the last 4 seasons, this is how bad the return game has been for the Eagles. They've been in the top 15 in average yards per return just once. And I'm talking kickoff and punt return. They were top 15. So just in the middle of the pack of all teams in the league. They were top 15 in average yards per return just once. And that was kickoff return yards in 2019 with Miles Sanders when he was a rookie. They have just one return touchdown since then. It was Jalen Reagor last year against the Green Bay Packers. In the last 5 years, since 2016, they have 2 return touchdowns. From 2009 to 2015, the previous 6 years before that, they had 10. They had 8 more than they do now. And although that was an unrealistic pace to keep up, most teams don't go from Deshaun Jackson as a returner to Darren Sproles. You've seen the significant drop-off. Heck, even, I mentioned D. Jackson, Darren Sproles, but they're not the only ones that were able to produce even as backups in the return game. Chris Polk got you a return touchdown one time. So did Wendell Smallwood once upon a time. So did Josh Huff. And the Eagles have not been able to get that since then. And so it continues to be a bottom tier unit in the return game. And it used to give this team such an advantage with field position, and it could really help you win games even when the other units aren't perfect. But now it really just hurts the Eagles. And hopefully that turns around soon, but I don't know if that's going to happen in 2021. It would be really nice if the return game could help out this team in the final 4 games. I'm Louie DiBiase. This is Locked On Eagles. Check out our videos on fox43.com or on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube page for videos Monday through Friday. And again, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get the show. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching, and let's go Birds.